Ooh.
Oh, this has changed since I last used Zoom. There used to be a big red thing that came up in the corner that said live. I think it just says YouTube now. Um,
Yeah,
hello,
yeah.
everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to our first Arches Ad-Lib, which is a conversation with some of the wonderful artists that are participating in Wandsworth Fringe this year. Mute. Um, thank you. And presenting their wonderful show. Sorry, I wasn't shouting mute at you. The the YouTube link sends me to the YouTube page and wouldn't mute. Anyway, I'm really excited to chat to the two wonderful artists that are sitting in front of me about the work that they're producing at the moment and just general wider things about LGBTQ plus programming and art and blah 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 blah. That whole kind of kettle of fish. I think it'd be really nice to start off with just introducing ourselves so that anybody that's watching or kind of consuming this or even listening along on your lovely Sunday evening here knows who they're listening to. So I'm Tom, I'm the artistic director at Car Crash Productions, and I'm really excited to be joined by these two lovely people who are, Sean, should we come to you first?
Yes, hello. I'm Sean. I'm queer, and I'm a clown. Yeah, I've been a clown since uni, and now I run my own clown cabaret with two other clowns that actually coming to my house in 2 hours. And it's called Funny Business. Check us out. And I'm also doing a solo show, which is on queer Judaism and how to mix the two, and specifically anti-Zionist queer Judaism. And yeah, it's called Penguin the Fish, and it's about a fish that was cut in half when Moses parted the Red Sea. And I just tried to do a Moses costume and it failed, and I'm supposed to use it tomorrow for performance, so I hope things arrive in time. So here we are. Here we are. Yeah.
There's so many juicy, wonderful things that you just said that I'm so excited to chat to you about and get into. But first, just chucking it over to Leo. Who are you? Introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, my name is Leo. My pronouns are he, him. And I am the one of two artistic directors of Shakespeare, along with, of course, the wonderful Tom. Um, and we basically work on queering Shakespeare works. In particular, for this time around at the Wandsworth Fringe, we are reprising our sellout show from last year, Midsummer Night's Rave, which we're really excited about, which is basically a very queerified, camp, rave culture inspired version of Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, it's all good fun.
Right. Um, Lovely. I want to start off with like a really big question just to the room. Of We've just heard from both of you about two incredibly different but wonderful shows. And I'm wondering when we're putting this like stamp of queer art on what we're discussing here, what is queer art if it can be so many wonderful things like we've just described?
Well, I just finished a master's in queer performance, and the answer
I'm
is
the right
no one
person to
fucking
answer.
knows. No
Yeah.
one knows. I got a first, but no one fucking. I'm about to do a PhD in queer performance. No one fucking knows. Just so you, no one knows.
Jury's still out.
It's a thing of like, is it made by queer people? Is it queer? Does it make it queer? Or like, is for me, it's a show that's kind of queering some codes. So even if it's made by queer people, but it's just like, I don't know, like Romeo and Juliet and everything's normal, then is it queer theatre? But and also I think there's a big difference between like gay theatre and queer theatre.
Yeah.
But I guess yeah, it's just something that's questioning the norm, and that's also made in a really weird way. Like, I guess a lot of queer people are neurodivergent, so there's also like very different ways of thinking and of making, and everyone has different strategies. And there's like, in a way, a queer strategy of like redefining art to be able to fit in it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, no one fucking knows, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
concur, go on, Leo.
No, I mean, I don't have much to add to what Sean said because I think I completely agree. I think there's so many different ways of looking at it. I mean, just from the perspective of Shakespeare, obviously we as a company work specifically with Shakespeare text, which generally speaking even though as a Shakespeare nerd, I will happily make the case for the fact that Shakespeare was a raging bisexual till the cows come home because he was. But and even though there's some like queer elements in his writing, it's generally been played in a very kind of traditionally like cis het normative kind of way. And yes, you could put it on stage as queer people and then go, yes, maybe this is queer art, but certainly I like the idea of not just kind of going, yes, we have an ethos as a company of going, we want to work with predominantly queer actors, queer, our DJ who sound design the whole thing is also queer, all of this kind of stuff. So most people involved in the company are queer, but it's also about going, okay, let's look at this text and let's pull out the queer elements of it and let's actually queer this story. Let's not just gender bend, but also like look at like these lines, how can we change the context of them and kind of put them in the context of queer culture and change that lens that it's viewed through, rather than just going, we're going to gender bend some characters and that's going to make it queer. But I think there's so many ways of looking at it, which is what makes it fun. It's all just playing about, isn't it? It's all playing about, it's all having fun, it's all allowing people to express the very, very multifaceted identity that is being queer, and all of it's wonderful and all of it's good fun.
Yeah, I think there's also a thing in queer theatre of like it's made not for cishet people.
Yeah,
I don't think I really don't like when people are like, I make this show for the queers because it's like there's so many different type of queers. You cannot make this show for all the queers. Like,
yeah.
no. But I can say that I make this show specifically for cishet people to be like, what the fuck? I've never heard of this. And like I've seen a lot of shows. Like I remember, oh, there was Lucy McCormack did this show, and she's a clown, love clowns, obviously.
Mhm.
And I knew it was going to be wild, but I sat next to this cishet couple, from like Finland, and they were visiting. They're like, "Oh, we heard that this show might be quite good," and they were like 50-year-old, and like things started, and like the woman kept looking at me like, "Ooh, ooh," and I was like, "This is completely normal in my world." And then there's a scene where Lucy masturbates to a carrot, and the woman was like, what the fuck is happening? And I was like, this is completely normal in
Yeah.
my world. Like again,
Mhm. Yeah.
welcome, like experience something new.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
something
think it's
perverted.
interesting that you both talked about like cultural elements of it in a way. Is that it is ultimately just a presentation of a culture which you are a part of and know. Um, in that sense, I'm forming the question as I'm making the thought. Is the audience like you were just talking about there also to be a queer audience, or are these shows kind of open to all? Or I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer to this either.
Um, I think the question of audience is really interesting, isn't it? Because in general, you can't really control your audience, but also
Right.
like whenever I make a show or whenever someone makes a show, the first question is like, who is this show for? And I actually hate this question because I'm like, I don't know. I'm just a clown and I'm gonna do my thing. And if you laugh, you laugh. And hopefully you'll laugh. But I guess, yeah, like obviously anyone can come to a show. My show's no children. None. But apart from that, yeah, like it's very much about King, so no.
Fair.
No, but anyone could stumble upon the thing and watch it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're gonna like it or not like it. It might open their world. Some queers might come and see this and be like, "This is shit." I talk about queer Judaism and like, Jewish people scare like Jewish people coming to see my show is the scariest thing because we might have really different political opinions and like,
Right.
I don't want to offend anyone. So yeah, it's whoever walks in the room really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Uh, that's what you should expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think there is like a certain amount of, I think the point that you made, Charlotte, earlier about being like, it's not necessarily you're making this for queer people, but you're certainly not making it for straight people. I feel like that's a really good way of approaching it because I think certainly in my kind of approach for this version of Midsummer Night's Rave, as well as being one of the actors in it, I'm also the associate director. And one of the things that I think is really interesting to look at in those rehearsal rooms is, as a group of predominantly queer people, we're kind of having fun and we're playing to our different experiences, to our different expressions, all that kind of stuff. And it's wonderful to have that kind of input because we have such a wide range of queer people who identify in very different ways, who have very different backgrounds. And it's nice having all of those perspectives and voices and lived experiences in a space making a show. But it's very much all about kind of like playing for that queer culture and going, we're making this kind of almost for us, if that makes
Right.
sense. I think that's how I like to approach it is I'm making something that entertains me and that I enjoy making as a queer person and that I collaborate with the actors on this show to make something that all of us are like, yes, we like this. We enjoy this. We think this is funny. We think this is interesting and engaging. And that's kind of the approach. I think whoever walks into that space, I hope that they find something to connect with, but also at the end of the day, it's not our job to pander to any group. We're here making art. We're here making what we want to make as kind of a queer collective.
Yeah.
I hope you connect with that, but if you don't, then okay, fine.
I'm kind of interested. Both of you mentioned almost like art as a self-expression and kind of a route to be able to discuss kind of what that is. Um, but obviously the world is in a very shifting place at the moment, and I think both of these wonderful shows that we're talking about at the moment, perhaps feel quite prevalent at the moment as to worldviews. How does it feel creating that sort of art at the moment?
Uh,
Leo's like, now.
yeah. I mean, also, I'm sorry, I know I keep responding first, so I'm
No,
sorry.
no, no, you go, you go.
Um,
Let's have a system.
yeah, um, my show is very much an answer to the last 2 years, and especially the first few months. Like, um, as a queer Jewish person, I didn't have any space left because, there were, because especially in the first few months, a lot of people didn't know how to be anti-Zionist to support Palestine without mixing in anti-Semitism, and that was the truth. That just was the truth. And but then a lot of Jews were very Zionist, and so I was like, God, where do I go? And I received like death threats online. A lot of my friends did. I received death threats on dating apps. And I was like, oh my God, like I've also, my parents come from a long line of anti-Zionist revolutionaries. I've probably learned about Zionism before most people knew what it was, and I felt so angry, like,
Yeah,
fuck you, just because I'm Jewish, you're seeing my body and you're assuming, and I did drag, and I was like, well, I don't really know how to be present on stage and say that I'm Jewish and I only have 5 minutes, and you're going to assume things of me because you are.
yeah,
And so it was very much a response, and I became very anxious about being on stage, so my character became very anxious, and so Penguin is kind of reflection of this being torn, this being like this shyness, this frustration of not knowing how to express themselves, and also like is educating people, and like I think that's very important. I think a lot of people have educated themselves, and now we have like amazing action, but yeah, at first it wasn't exactly the case. Like a lot of people had just discovered what was happening, basically. And yeah, I met a lot of like amazing queer Jews along the way, especially the organization Queer Yeshiva, which is an anti-Zionist queer um place where you can go and do stuff, and yeah.
right.
But yeah, I guess it was very much like I had so much on the heart that Penguin just kind of came out of it. Like I was just like I had to do something, and like my clowns in general a reaction to that. So my first clown was a reaction to like something very personal that like, doesn't need sharing. And then this clown is a reaction to this, and then I'm creating another clown called Big Shrimp, which is on therapy and queerness and mental health and the feeling of never feeling like you can access therapy because you're too queer for therapy.
Right.
And it's based on I Am a Monster That's Talking to You by Ricardo. I have the one in French, but it's based on that book, which I recommend. So
Ooh.
yeah. Big Shrimp coming at some.
I'm very excited to see Big Shrimp now. I feel like I have to see Big
100%.
Shrimp.
Yes.
Um,
Leo,
yeah,
how about you?
yeah. We're living in a very interesting time politically. Um, to just exist as a queer person. Um, and let's make it very clear. As a queer person, yes, I have strikes against me, but I also have a lot of privilege, and I am not the group that's being most targeted here. But for me, I think in particular in the wake of everything with the Supreme Court recently, which is something that still feels very raw and very emotional for me, and that I have an extreme amount of anger about. Um, I think the thing that I'm enjoying about getting to do this show, this wonderful, wonderful show now for the second time, is that this show is bonkers and this show is stupid and this show is it's funny and it's kind of joyful in its weird bonkers way and it's just a big party and in a really odd way I had a moment a little while back where I was like, I feel like I should be making something more serious about this because it's a serious issue and we need to have those discussions. And in my personal life, I am having serious discussions with a lot of people in my life about it and trying to make sure that, it's a discussion that doesn't die with that decision, that it's a thing that we keep talking about because we have to if we ever want to kind of make some progress. But I had a lovely little moment where in a rehearsal the other day I had the realization of, oh, actually, this is also kind of this is its own act of resistance, regardless of, what's happening in the world, what's happening in politics. We are here, we are queer, we're not going anywhere, and we're gonna have a big fuck off party, is basically what this show is. And I think oftentimes certainly for me, I forget that joyfulness can also be an act of resistance, as well as, being angry and rioting and protesting and all this kind of stuff. Like that is important, yes, but so is the joy. And I think for me, that's what this show is. This show is about being silly and celebrating the fun, silly, crazy, bonkers aspects of queer culture and
Yeah.
campness and all of this. And it's its own act of resistance, but it's also quite rejuvenating for me, having felt quite burnt out over the last few years, but in particular over the last few months, having felt really burnt out. It's really nice to be in a space that's just kind of queer joy expressed.
Yeah, joy is so important. I feel like
Mm.
another reason I wanted to make my show is I think a lot of shows about queerness, a lot of shows about Judaism is about sadness and death and how, especially, like name one show about Jewish people where they don't die at the end or something horrible happens. I actually have a couple because I studied it a lot, but they're difficult to find.
Yeah.
One is actually two lesbians and one is a sex worker and the other one like they both escape and there's like a sex scene and it's yeah, that's really nice. I recommend that. It's called Gods of Revenge. But yeah, joy. Like yeah, I just wanted to make a thing that was celebrating
Mm.
my
Mm.
culture instead of being like, this
Yeah,
is sad. Like
yeah,
joyful, we are who we are.
It's that thing, isn't it? Pride Month is June when both of these shows are being presented, and I eternally think when it comes to Pride Month that yes, it started as resistance and it started as bricks being thrown and riots, but and it still has that element of it. It still has that energy of protest as it should, but ultimately now most of the time when you think of pride you do think of joy, and music and festivities and color. um so it's really interesting to hear you both kind of say that. um yeah, great. I love that. I don't necessarily have a question to lead on to now. This is the joy of this being so free flowing. So with that in mind, um, can you tell us what was the process of creating these shows? Let's talk about the shows themselves. So let's mix things up. No, I'm joking. Let's start with Sean again. What was the inception of Penguin the Fish to Penguin the Fish being on stage in just under a month?
Okay, so Penguin has actually been in the work for 2 years to clarify,
Wow.
yes. So Penguin was part of my MA. So it started again with that feeling of like, oh God, I don't know how to create Jewish art, like I don't know what to do. Like I used to perform and it just said like bad Jew on my butt. And now I'm like, well, I can't bad Jew has so many connotations now that I'm not gonna do that. And so it started with actually um, I- I'm a writer outside of clowning, and I'm very inspired by a really weird book like House of Leaves, and like yeah, so I decided to make a House of Shaun, and there was a page in it about a fish that was cut in half by Moses, and he was in pain, but he was kind of really enjoying the pain. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I decided to try it out on in drag, and it kind of went from there. So the first iteration, it was actually so bad. Like 10 minute bit like at an exhibition, and I was booked to do something about food, and I decided to do that because I was a young drag idiot that thought, when you start drag you think you can do anything, which you can't. And it was so bad, and there was some really cool clowns there, and I'm so glad like I actually performed like 2 weeks ago in front of those clowns, and no one remembered Penguin the Fish, and they all loved my performance. I was like, yes,
Right.
that's the first time you saw it. That is the first time you saw Penguin the Fish. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah. And so originally had a more complicated backstory because he wanted to get with Moses so that Moses would sin, and so Moses would die because prophets can sin, and then he would be whole again. That kind of went out the window, but the idea of being whole again was really important to the show, and the idea that Penguin will never be whole again. Penguin cannot not be whole again. That's the whole point. And then I was lucky enough to be given an hour in my queer MA. So I did an iteration of that in November, which kind of killed me because I also lost my house at this point and it was very stressful. So it was just like scenes, but the kind of line of the show started emerging of like A, Penguin will not be whole again, and B, like Penguin has a really complicated relationship to Moses, and C, Penguin is not gay, which is very important because it actually differentiates me from Penguin because I come out of Penguin sometimes to talk.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, then I did that and it was okay. And now I'm realizing that there's more of a storyline. So now this iteration is very much Penguin versus Moses. So
Mm.
it's it's obvious that Penguin is Moses' sub basically, and it's quite toxic. Like it's not a good like dumb sub relationship. And Penguin doesn't really realize what Moses is saying, and I found this parasha, which is a bit of the Torah, which where Moses speaks and says, when you invade the land, you're gonna destroy everything, you're gonna kill everything, you're gonna kill everyone, like. And so I've been really interested in studying that parasha and being like, shit, like that is in the Torah and that is used, and what do we do to that? And so I've been basing myself of that and of Penguin kind of rebelling and finding his own Judaism by dumbing Moses, basically. So it's very much about kink as well on my own kink journey, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I
that's
have to say, if I wasn't already sold on this show, which I absolutely am, you've like sold me on
I'm
it.
very
I just
sold. I'm
think
very
it
sold.
sounds
thank you.
so wonderful. Like also it feels like there's so much intensely personal and kind of anecdotal stuff that is part of that journey that's created this show, and that's the most watchable thing. That sounds great.
I also have a degree in Egyptology, so whenever I talk about the ancient world, I'm like that's one of the jokes of the show. Is like, I very much know,
Yeah.
like, like, like I tell a whole ancient Egyptian tale at some point, and I'm like, I know it because
Yeah.
Penguin is from the Red Sea, so he knows this tale, and it links to the subdom situation. So it's
Right.
because that's actually how the first pharaoh of Egypt became pharaoh, is that he domed the other pharaoh, by the way. That's how it's more complicated, but it's basically that, yeah.
That's my favorite fact I've learned today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
close.
think I won't spend the rest of my week the same.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like
Look
I'm
up
going to be on
the
Wikipedia.
look up the salad myth, like Egyptian salad myth. Yeah.
I'm gonna be Googling that immediately after this. Actually,
I'm
correct.
sure
I'm going to
you
finish
will.
sending out a rehearsal schedule, and then I'm going to be
Yeah,
Googling this
yeah,
immediately after this.
yeah.
Um, that's brilliant.
Um, Leo, same thought to you, which feels like a strange question for me to ask, but how did Midsummer come about? What has been the process of kind of creating this show?
Well, there's a wonderful man by the name of Tom Sargent who did a version of this show in 2019 in Epping Forest. Correct me if I get anything wrong in this, Tom.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
um, did a version of the show Midsummer Night's Rave in Epping Forest under Car Crash Productions. We reprised it last year, 5 years later, at the Wandsworth Fringe in this same space that it's being done in now, and it's kind of become this piece that's certainly for this version of it is kind of site specific to the arches because we use multiple spaces in there. So we obviously use the main arch, but we remove all seating. It's a standing piece. The audience move through multiple spaces. We also use the outside space, and we also use what we affectionately call the cave at the back, which is a fantastic space. It's really cool. Uh, which we use as like fairyland, basically. But so we reprised it last year. We had a cast of 11. Went super well. We, for this year, have had quite a lot of our cast return. There are obviously some people who weren't able to come back this year just because of different commitments. So we have a couple of new people as well. I've also changed. I was in the show as well last year, but I've changed parts for this year. Um, and yeah, we're currently in rehearsals, which is a really interesting process because obviously with an 11-person cast, we've kind of got three ensembles. We've got the lovers, we've got the fairies, we've got the mechanicals. The mechanicals is exactly the same chorus as last year. The fairies, 2 out of 3 are the same as last year, and the lovers, other than myself, are all new cast members. And I've also changed roles in that. So it's very interesting because it's almost like a slightly different process with those three groups separately and then trying to kind of culminate them all together as a full cast, which is fascinating. But it means that we've gotten to spend a lot of time this time talking about characters and talking about relationships. And yeah, we're in the process of kind of like sorting out blocking for everything now, doing rehearsals. We also had last year, and we'll have again this year, we had a DJ come in to live mix the show, which is a really important part of the show and how it runs. Because obviously it's all inspired by being in a rave. So most of the show is underscored by kind of like ravey music. But yeah, it's been a really fun process to do again and again. It's been really interesting from like more of a directorial perspective to be like, cool, we're revisiting this show. We have some new cast members, and that means kind of new, different versions of characters because different actors obviously bring different things to parts, but also kind of getting to with actors who have been in it before, kind of being like, okay, let's how can we build with them as well? How can we kind of flesh out these characters? Are there different things we can pull on this time round? Are there, new elements we can pull out? Are there new objectives that they have this year? Are we going to shift that slightly? And that's been a really interesting, fun kind of collaborative thing to do with the cast, in particular the returning cast, because obviously we already have that relationship and they already have those characters. And it's just really fun to have that dialogue with them and go, let's have some fun. Let's play with these because we already have the groundwork from last year. So it's been a really interesting process so far this year, and I'm excited for the rest of the rehearsal process. Yeah.
Lovely. I think kind of a question flowing in both of you because a big difference, kind of just listening to you both, is that one show has like a lot of people around it, a lot of creatives, a lot of cast members that have kind of changed over the years. You're saying, Leo. I say that like I don't know that. And Sean, I don't know. Is there other people in your rehearsal space? Is it just you? Like, what is the
I have a
difference?
director. So I have a director called Steffi Walker, which is also the amazing Sweet FA and drag. If you ever meet them, they're
Right.
least. And that's it. I've had help through the process. I had an amazing tutor called Olympia Bukakis, which is a Berlin drag artist. They're insane. Check them out. And obviously I wasn't completely alone because I was doing MA.
Yeah.
But most of the things is by my own self, yes.
Yeah.
So generally what happens is that it'll be midnight and then I'll wake up my partner, I'll be like, I've had an idea. And he's like, great, talk to me about that. And I'm like, yes. So I want to just do a whole scene and then I go to bed I want. And he's like, cool, thank you so much. It is what happens most of my creative process. It's really fun dating me, I recommend. But yeah, that's it. Like I kind of have weird creative frenzies. And then I use my partner's space to rehearse as well because I can't really afford rehearsal space.
Sure.
Not even of me. And yeah, then I just try out ideas. I've also been very lucky to I'm friends with a lot of clowns and clowns are really collaborative. So in general, what I've done is I've tried some bits and then I'm doing that actually in 2 days. I try some bits in front of clowns and then they kind of tell me what works, what doesn't, because clown world making is very different than like another kind of because everything needs to
Yeah.
make sense, but it's also completely nonsensical, but everything makes sense. Like I have an answer for everything in this world, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm mostly alone. And it's just mostly my weird ideas that I then try to make. I also there's two other characters in my show, which is God and Moses. And I picked very carefully who was going to be the voice for them. So I've also had help. The God monologues. My friend Mariana helped me uh write a little bit because she's amazing. She wrote the first trans to filler, which is a prayer book, which is do I have it somewhere? I'll try and find it. But anyway, it's incredible. And I really wanted God to be a Jewish trans woman. So God is a Jewish trans woman. So obviously Moses is a Jewish trans man. And there I asked Elan, which is my Hebrew teacher and my close friend, and same like they're very important to me to have in the show. So it's like I'm kind of supported by those voices that support me outside. And it's also moments where I'm still, so I kind of like be like, oh, my friends are with me. Also, my partner is obligated to be there every time. Also, because he has a bit in it. So, well, I can do without him, but it's awkward because yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so my partner's obligated.
I love that. It's like whether we want it to be or not, it's collaborative and it's
Yeah,
happening that way.
yeah,
Those are
yeah.
the best kind
So,
of relationships. Those are the
yeah,
best
Yeah,
kind of
it's a
absolutely.
fantastic relationship.
relationships.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, we also do collaborate outside and make art pieces, so we're used to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I he has to be there so I can spit in his mouth at some point. So it's nice.
I have to say the artwork that I've seen that has exactly what you've just described is wonderful. So that the excitement is built. Leo, on the other end of that kind of spectrum, in a way, do you?
yeah.
How does it feel to be in a room that occasionally has like 30 people in it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, because here's the thing, as from like an actor perspective, and also individually when I'm like thinking of things like from a directorial perspective, I do sometimes still have those creative middle of the night things where I'm like, I've had an idea for how this is going to work, and I go and I write it down. I can do all of that, but because it's an 11-person cast, and on that 11-person cast, and also four of us on production team, so. No, that is 13 people total because I am in both those things. I had to try and do math for a second. I was like, is that no, is that no, that's 14 people. I can't math. I'm sorry. I'm queer and work in the arts. I don't know how to calculate things. But yeah, it's interesting because I mean I think it puts a certain level of parameter on it because obviously trying to get people into rehearsal spaces and get people to be in the same space in order to rehearse things. There is kind of that logistical aspect,
Sure.
um, which I've literally been working on for all of today and have taken a break to come and do this. But I'm literally in the middle of doing mass rehearsal scheduling. Um, Yeah, it's interesting because in some ways it's a parameter of going, oh, I don't have it kind of takes the control out of your hands, which can sometimes be frustrating. In particular, as someone who very much is kind of I work best is kind of like I have a creative flurry and then like I kind of step away from it for a little bit. And then which you can't really do when you're trying to coordinate that big of a cast, which in some ways I find frustrating, but at the same time, it's also really lovely. I think, Sean, you spoke to this really well. I think just having people around you to kind of support and to talk with and to kind of bring in ideas and stuff is really interesting. You know, we have I mean, we have many wonderful cast members who have brought in like interesting new things like to characters. So like I was chatting with someone the other day and I was like, I feel like these bits drag on a little bit. I feel like we should maybe make some cuts in that. And she was just like, I can go through and look at cuts for you. Like that's the thing that I can, why don't you delegate that to me? Because it's my character, I can have a little look for you. I was like, great, brilliant. You know, there's other people going, oh, I think this would be a really beneficial thing to look at in a rehearsal. I'm like, that's actually a really good point. Let me put that, let's find out where we can put that in a plan. We have one of the people from the Lovers Chorus, the guy playing Demetrius, Javi, is also really massively into Shakespeare. And so I'm often sitting down with him and kind of going from like a language perspective, going, let's unpack this together because I feel like I need a
Right.
second person to chat to about this. And so while there is that frustration of kind of being like, I can't work as autonomously and kind of as in the unstructured way that my very neurodiverse brain wants to work, there is also the wonderful part of going, it's such a collaborative space. And I feel like we've also really been able to cultivate that in the cast of kind of going, look, neither Tom as director or myself as associate director, we're both collaborative directors. We're not here to kind of impose our will of exactly what this looks like and just here is the exact thing we want to go do it. Like that's not what that process is about for us. Because also, again, it's a queer piece. We are not the only two queer perspectives that this should be coming from. Like there should be other things as well. We need the perspectives of, you know, we need the perspectives of, you know, non-binary people and of queer women. And, you know, if it's just me and Tom dictating that, in particular for a show that kind of has so many different characters and so many different representations of queerness, it would
Yeah.
be unfair if it was like it's a gay guy and a trans guy dictating exactly what, in particular, like with the fairies, where it's all, you know, uh, it's all played as queer women. It's a bunch of lesbians and then non-binary puck. Like it would be weird if we were dictating that because that's not we're not the people who should be dictating that.
It's kind of almost what you were saying right back at the start of this, Sean, is that it's like queer theatre is inherently a massive plethora of different people and
Yeah.
different perspectives. It's hard to say, what was the exact phrase you said, that it's like gay theatre and queer theatre are almost separate things at this point, which is so true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
some guys. So. But yeah, I think it's interesting this idea of collaboration because apart from my solo show, I never do something on my own. Like either, so I have my clowns, so I have my best clown friend called Krusty, and we have a duo called Cheap Crust, where we do animals but badly, and then we have
Oh,
Funny Biz, which is me, Krusty, and Cabbage, where we kind of always devise group numbers and stuff. And even like because as a writer I mostly like to have illustrators, so I have someone that's right like illustrating a comic book for me, and Ben, my partner, also like we're collaborating on like quite a few pieces and this thing in September for an exhibition. So it's really weird because I don't actually like working alone. I'm a massive
yeah.
collaborator, but I kind of have to do it, and I've never really being able to be in a room alone and just make me do the thing. Like I'm very much like at the last minute, oh, okay, like even there, like I had a Moses costume to do. I'd had all week to do it. I'm literally rehearsing with it tomorrow. To try it on, it doesn't work. I have to redo everything for tomorrow before 1, which hopefully it will happen. It will arrive on time. I will staple it, but it's like I could have just done it yesterday. I could have done it any other day. Didn't do it. So tomorrow I'm probably going to be rehearsing with a towel in my head, on my head, and pretending that this is my costume, which is okay because it'll be ready for Tuesday, which is the actual show. You know, tomorrow's just a rehearsal. But you know, I would like someone to be like, Sean, do the
It's
thing.
helpful having that body double, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
having that extra person in the room to be
And
like,
yeah, and in general, like I'm also not the one making the costumes or anything because I'm not really a maker. So like within the clowns, like in the funny biz, I'm more the weird academic.
mm,
And Cabbage makes the costume. And like Krusty's the stage managing, and I'm more like into like money and like sending emails and stuff. So
yeah.
it's
I
not
think
my forte.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
other really lovely thing about like not even just from a queer thing, but just from an artistic place. It's so lovely to have collaboration because different people have different strengths. Like there are certain things, like for example, we have a wonderful choreographer called Alex who comes in to do our stuff. I'm also aware that we have multiple cast members who are quite good at like dance and stuff because we have an insane 10-minute rave sequence that starts the show because why not? Because this show is bonkers. Uh, and also like a 3 or 4 minute one that ends the show. We spend a lot of time raving, but it was so lovely when we had her come on to do that because choreography is not my wheelhouse. That is not what I was put on this earth to do, and I'm so glad that that's not my job. And like same with like, I understand a little bit about like tech and stuff. I can do like some tech stuff, but having Tom on board is wonderful because Tom understands all of the tech stuff and I don't have to think about it,
Yeah.
which is quite nice because that would be no bueno. It would be bad. It would take up far too much of my brain and probably break it if I tried to do that. So it's the wonderful thing about having, even if you work on a project alone, having that kind of artistic community around you because you can just pull from people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just message people and be like, can you do this? Help, help. Like, even I needed a photographer, and someone was like, I can do it for £200. I was like, I'll message my mate. And they were like, yeah, I'll do it for 30 quid. I was like, yeah, like, no offense, but like, you're both as good, except one is my mate. So,
Yeah,
and they'll do it for 30 quid. So I'm just,
yeah,
but yeah, I also have used the same tech person for years now, like for funny business. And for every show I do, I'm like, we need this person. So when it comes to tech, I'm also, it's really nice that I'm like, I know I've got someone that,
yeah.
Yeah.
will not fuck up the tech, knows the show. And also he speaks French, which means that when I'm really stressed, I can speak in French, which is fantastic.
Always very helpful.
Yeah. But
When I'm stressed, I speak in fake French as well, which I wish I could speak actual French, but
I can attest to the fact that this is true. It's a very odd experience.
it's really true.
really
Yeah, I need to
Tom
learn
makes
French.
noises and but it sounds vaguely French and we're not sure where that comes from. We're not sure where it comes from.
that's fair enough. Yeah.
I think if I did have a sort of clown persona, I think they would probably be some French entity of some nature. I don't know why. I just think they would.
I think you'd have to call it French entity because I think that's quite a good name actually. I
Like
quite like
that. Leo, have you ever had a clown persona?
myself. I don't know. Do I have a clown persona? I feel like if you put me in a group of straight cis men, there is a clown persona of Leo that comes out because I am a trans man, but I'm also a straight trans man, and that's quite it becomes very laddie very fast, which is odd because I'm not a
You do assimilate very quickly,
we
basically.
yes, I assimilate very fast. I go from being like relatively like kind of fun and flamboyant and camp to being very quickly one of the boys, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's entertaining to watch. It's
Uh,
very yeah.
really weird experience, isn't it? Like I'm bisexual, and I'm quite masked, so I think a lot of lads think I'm one of them, and then they'll
Yeah.
start talking about women, and I'm like, I don't believe your views. Like that's no, actually,
Yeah, yeah.
no,
I've
no,
had this experience many times where
yeah,
they're like,
yeah, and
"Oh,
also
you're
it's
one of
like,
us.
yeah,
Don't ever
no,
belong in the kitchen." And I'm like, "Oh
no,
no,
I
no,
did
we
not
need to have
believe
a
that.
conversation. Oh no."
And also it's really bad because I'm poly, and so a lot of men are just like, wow, you must get all the girls, like you're just being like getting all the girls, and I'm like, no, this is really weird. I'm not poly because I want to get all the girls, like fuck off. Like this
Uh,
is yeah.
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 Yeah, it's straight cis men are a fascinating breed.
Really weird, really weird. I actually
Right.
went down a rabbit hole this morning where there was an ad on YouTube on how, like, it was a woman that was explaining to men how to make sure that all women fall for you. And then I clicked on the link, and it was like she was explaining the infallible flirting technique, that all men, even if you're not James Bond, like women, they will want you, they will desire you. And I was like, fucking hell, that actually exists. Like, that's actually a thing that
It's
happens.
that thing, we live in a bubble sometimes when we forget that there's just stuff out there that
Yeah,
just so
Yeah.
it's
flabbergasting.
crazy. It's really crazy.
Oh my God, it's so funny though. It's also I don't know why straight cis men are somehow the most homoerotic
Oh,
humans I've ever met in my life.
yeah,
Like most of it's yeah, it's mostly my straight cis male friends who act real gay with me, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm fine with this. This is chill with me. I'm very comfortable with my sexuality, but also, do you need to explore something? If you
yeah,
that's okay, we can chat. But just why what why do you keep pretending like you're gonna make out with me? This is what's happening. This is
yeah.
entertaining. Oh.
um, on that wonderful note of in enjoying queerness, I guess, whatever your letter in the queer mafia may be, um, uh, just to give one final plug, Penguin the Fish is on in the other arch on the 15th and 20th of June. I did it right, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Amazing. And you can catch Sean in that.
Only
And
me, so if you don't catch me, that's a bit weird because
it's
there's only me on stage. So
and Midsummer Night's Rave is on the seventh. Let's just say the 7th to the 11th. I think my brain might work easier if we say that.
7th, 8th, 10th, 11th. We have a break on Monday.
There you go. In the main arch at the Arches. So both shows at the Arches. Just to give a little plug to some of the other kind of queer programming that we've got over the course of that 2 weeks. We're starting our entire festival with the Queer Cabaret. It's run for the last 5 years now. It has some of the most fantastic acts. I'm really excited. That we get to see that again. Um, Midsummer Night's Rave, we've already mentioned. Drag Story Hour is coming back from last year. And there's a wonderful drag performer called Bev who's coming along to host that.
oh, I
And
love Bev.
Bev's brilliant. Yeah.
Uh,
I gave Bev their first drag gig like
oh,
5, 6 years ago. Um, which actually was the Queer Cabaret. There you go. Hey, careers
amazing.
made.
Wow. Wow.
Um, yeah, Bev's brilliant, and they're also doing a wonderful, but we hope controlled and not chaotic, drag brunch called Bev's Boozy Brunch, which is also on the 7th up in our balcony space this year. Um, we have the open mic night, which has been titled. You're gonna have to read this one. Unheard Voices: A Night of Untold Stories. So there's that. We have the return of CBD Night, Cabaret, Burlesque, and Drag. They are fantastic, and they have a residency every Friday, which is the 13th and the 20th. Expect them to announce acts soon, but there's drag and burlesque and comedy, and it's a good time. Um, Washing Machine Vortex is on the 14th of June. I'm going to rattle through these because there's so many. Jack McCann's Guide to Modern Life or Attention Seeking, some stand up on the 14th of June. Penguin the Fish, we've already talked about, but it's still on the 15th and 20th of June. Five Lesbians Eating a Quiche is on the 17th and 18th of June. And finally, really excited in the main arch on the 21st of June, we have Dykes on Mics, the karaoke, from 9 o'clock. There's so much there. I think we're quite proud of our LGBTQ programming this year because it feels like a really good variety of stuff there. So please come along and support that. And in particular, Penguin the Fish and Midsummer Night's Rave. You've heard from two really brilliant creatives there. Anything either of you want to say as parting words before we stop today?
I promised my lecturer would mention fisting, so I'm just gonna mention fisting as a practice is very important to my art. Um, yeah.
That was the I almost don't want to say anything because that feels perfect. Um Final thing to say, firstly, just that I'm very, very excited about the lineup of queer stuff that we've got this year at the Wandsworth Fringe, because I've also got several of my kind of mates who are also artists who are doing stuff there, um, who are on other shows. So it's really, really exciting. I'm very excited to go and support and see all of them. And do I have anything else to say? Oh, we'll do it because it's popped into my brain. If you want to follow Shakespeare on Instagram, it's
Oh, of course.
Shakespeare
Oh,
is
yeah.
here. Shakespeare is here on Instagram. All
And
one word.
and I am clown four, like the number four cheap. Clown four cheap. Yes,
Pound
yes.
for cheap is great as an Instagram handle. That's fantastic.
Thank you, because my drag name is Sean the Cheap. It's gay confusing because Sean the Cheap presents Penguin the Fish, but also yeah, it's everyone's like, what do I introduce you at? I'm like, I don't know.
One
Kind
of
of cheap,
them.
yeah.
Like my artist name is Sean the Cheap. You know, that's good.
I love how you've kept that nugget to the end. I think that's
Beautiful.
beautiful. Thank you both for joining us today, and thank you for having a little watch along on YouTube with us.